Some stories from history come with answers. These 12 do not. Each case file contains evidence, witness testimony, forensic reports, physical remains, official investigations. And in every case, the evidence points in multiple directions at once. These are 12 historical mysteries the evidence cannot explain. On December 4th, 1872, the British brig Dei Gratia sighted the American merchant ship Mary Celeste drifting in the Atlantic, 400 miles east of the Azores. Boarding officers found the vessel entirely deserted. The ship's logbook remained, but its final entry was dated November 25th, creating an 11-day silence. The only lifeboat was gone. Inside the hold, 3.5 feet of water sloshed around a largely intact cargo of 1,701 barrels of denatured alcohol. Yet the ship was seaworthy, with 6 months of provisions and no signs of severe storm damage. One of the ship's 2 bilge pumps had been disassembled, and contemporary court records note an old sword remained in the cabin. During the 1873 salvage inquiry in Gibraltar, investigators weighed hypotheses of mutiny, piracy, and sudden cargo fumes, but the physical records supported none. 10 people, including the captain's wife and young daughter, had vanished without a trace. The core anomaly of the file remains unresolved. Why would an experienced crew abandon a structurally sound vessel stocked with food and water with no evidence of violence? Preserved in Yale's Voynich Rare Book and Manuscript Library, the physical reality of the Voynich manuscript is verified by modern science. In 2009, physicists at the University of Arizona conducted accelerator mass spectrometry radiocarbon dating on 4 of its leaves. The analysis placed the production of the animal skin vellum between 1404 and 1438 with 95% confidence. The codex currently contains 240 surviving pages, though quire structures suggest an original total closer to 272. These leaves are filled with hand-drawn illustrations of plants that do not exist on Earth, detailed astronomical diagrams, and groups of female figures bathing in green pools. Surrounding these drawings is an unknown script written in a fluid hand. Modern computational linguistics reveals that the text behaves like a natural language. Statistical analyses of word frequency, character distribution, and repeating patterns show structural organization incompatible with simple substitution ciphers or random gibberish. Yet, despite decades of work by military codebreakers, academic linguists, and modern artificial intelligence, not a single sentence has been successfully translated. The file remains open, leaving only 3 options: a lost historical tongue, an uncrackable cipher, or a highly disciplined medieval deception. In August 1587, a group of English settlers landed on Roanoke Island to establish a permanent colony. Governor John White sailed back to England for supplies shortly after, leaving behind 115 people, including his daughter and infant granddaughter. Delayed by war with Spain, White finally returned to the island on August 18, 1590. He found the site deserted. The dwellings had been systematically dismantled. There were no bodies, no signs of battle, and no abandoned weapons. The colonists had previously agreed to carve a Maltese cross if they were forced to leave under duress, but White found no such distress mark. Instead, he discovered the word Croatoan carved into a post of the fort, and the letters CRO on a nearby tree. The physical evidence points to an organized departure rather than a sudden attack, suggesting possibilities of relocation, famine, or peaceful integration with local populations. Yet no archaeological excavation has ever confirmed their fate. 115 people vanished, leaving behind a single, silent question. Did they assimilate into another civilization? And why did they leave only one word? On June 30th, 1908, a massive explosion detonated near the Podkamennaya Tunguska River in the remote Siberian taiga. The blast, estimated to carry the force of 1,000 Hiroshima bombs, instantly flattened 80 million trees across 830 square miles of forest. Witnesses reported a blinding fireball, a thunderous roar, and a shockwave heard over 1,000 miles away, while night skies across Europe and Asia glowed for days. Yet, when mineralogist Leonid Kulik led the first scientific expedition to the terrain in 1927, he found a baffling physical record. The fallen forest formed a stark, radial butterfly pattern, pointing away from the center. At the epicenter itself, however, charred trees stood perfectly upright, completely stripped of their branches. More perplexing still, investigators found no impact crater and no meteorite fragments. Modern researchers weigh theories of a stony asteroid vaporizing as a high-altitude airburst against potential impact fragments in nearby Lake Checo, but the anomaly remains. The most powerful explosion in recorded history left no physical trace of what caused it. On July 14, 1518, a woman named Frau Trophea stepped into a narrow street in Strasbourg and began to dance. She did not stop. Within weeks, municipal records document that approximately 400 citizens had joined her in a compulsive, non-stop frenzy. Disturbed by the growing crowd, the city council took an unprecedented step. They constructed a wooden stage and hired professional musicians and strongmen to keep the afflicted moving, believing the illness had to be danced out. Instead, contemporary chronicles describe a horrific scene of involuntary movement, glazed eyes, and sheer physical ruin. Sufferers danced until their feet bled, collapsing from dehydration, strokes, and heart attacks, with reports suggesting up to 15 deaths a day at its peak. The Swiss physician Paracelsus later classified the event as a form of madness rather than divine punishment. While modern theories point to ergot poisoning from contaminated rye or a mass psychogenic illness triggered by severe famine, neither explanation fully accounts for the scale of the outbreak. What drove 400 people to dance themselves to death, and why did it never happen again? In the 19th century, local accounts claimed that Yorkshire miners broke into a subterranean stone chamber. This report described walls that were extraordinarily smooth and vitrified by intense heat, with silver traces following vein patterns inconsistent with natural geology. Investigators noted a complete absence of tool marks matching any known historical craft tradition. Yet this file is defined by archival weakness rather than physical proof. No official mining ledger or geological survey from the 1800s documents the chamber, and the story is often confused with the Silver Pit, a natural glacial valley on the North Sea floor. Geologists and local miners remain divided, offering competing explanations of geological misreading versus early, undocumented smelting. The actual evidentiary base is exceptionally thin, far outweighed by the fame of the folklore. This leaves the account suspended between a poorly documented regional myth and an unexplained event. If the chamber was indeed a historical reality, it leaves behind a single unresolved question. Who extracted silver from Yorkshire stone using methods with no archaeological parallel? On December 5, 1945, 5 U.S. Navy Avenger torpedo bombers of Flight 19 vanished during a routine training mission out of Florida. The PBM Mariner rescue flying boat sent to locate them disappeared minutes after takeoff. No wreckage, bodies, or distress signals were ever recovered from either incident, sparking a legend across a 500,000 square mile expanse of the Atlantic. Yet this vast region is characterized by volatile weather, the swift currents of the Gulf Stream, and shallow, shifting reefs. When the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and Lloyd's of London normalized accident rates against the heavy volume of shipping and aviation traffic, they found the loss rate here is statistically indistinguishable from the global average. The insurance industry does not adjust premiums for the area, treating its risks as entirely ordinary. Still, while data demystifies the legendary zone, a fraction of its individual disappearances continue to resist reconstruction. The remaining evidence leaves behind a quiet, practical anomaly. Why do some vessels vanish completely without a trace in conditions that should leave one? In the 1950s, a young boy in Glasgow, Scotland, began describing memories of a life he claimed he had lived before. He spoke of a white house situated near a beach on the remote island of Barra, a black and white dog, and a mother named Sheila. He also recalled falling from a window, an event that allegedly ended that previous life. The child had never visited Barra, located in the Outer Hebrides. Intrigued by the specificity of the claims, investigators accompanied the family to the island to test his descriptions. Once there, they located a white house near the shoreline that closely matched the boy's details, and archival records confirmed a local family history involving a son who had died after a fall. This case became part of the files of Dr. Ian Stevenson at the University of Virginia, who spent decades documenting more than 3,000 similar reports of childhood, past life memories. While proponents view these records as provocative, critics point to the substantial risks of suggestibility, confirmation bias, and information transfer from well-meaning parents. The file remains open and unresolved, leaving a single question. What happens to human consciousness after death that our current scientific instruments have not yet learned to measure? In 1901, divers recovering artifacts from a Roman shipwreck near the Greek island of Antikythera brought up a corroded lump of bronze and wood. Originally overlooked in favor of classical statues, the object remained in storage until 1970s. X-ray studies exposed its interior. Inside the decayed mass lay approximately 30 interlocking bronze gears. The artifact was an astronomical calculator of remarkable sophistication, built to predict planetary paths, eclipses, and lunar phases. Its assembly utilized differential gearing and precise calibrations, reflecting an engineering capability that historians previously believed impossible for the era. Yet no intermediate devices, design plans, or parallel mechanical traditions survive in the ancient record. A mechanism of comparable technical precision would not reappear until medieval Europe developed geared clocks 1,400 years later. This leaves a profound, empty space in the history of science. How did this technology exist in 100 BCE? And why did it take 14 centuries to reinvent? In 1886, Sarah Winchester, the wealthy widow of the Winchester repeating rifle heir, began a construction project in San Jose, California, that would not cease until her death in 1922. For 38 years, workers labored in shifts 24 hours a day, transforming a modest farmhouse into an immense 7-story mansion of some 160 rooms. The resulting structure recorded a highly organized private logic. Staircases ascend directly into flat ceilings, doors open onto solid walls, and windows are set flat into floors. Within its depths are rooms built inside other rooms, labyrinthine, dead-end passages, and doors that open to sudden drops over the gardens below. While contemporary accounts document worker testimonies of nightly seances, offering period evidence of her belief in the spiritualist culture of the late 19th century, no diaries, letters, or blueprints survive to explain her true design. Sarah Winchester took her motives to the grave, leaving behind a complex physical monument of wood and plaster. The empty corridors leave a final, silent question. Was this ceaseless building driven by grief, delusion, or something she truly believed she was told? In 1991, residents of Taos, New Mexico, began reporting a persistent, low-frequency sound resembling an idling diesel engine. Surveys indicate that only about 2% of the local population can perceive this constant vibration. The reports triggered a formal congressional inquiry and multiple scientific investigations, drawing researchers from the University of New Mexico and Sandia National Laboratories to the desert. Yet, despite employing highly sensitive, calibrated acoustic equipment, these institutions failed to record the sound or identify any physical source. Similar minority reports of an elusive hum have emerged on every continent except Antarctica, from the coastal city of Bristol in England to Windsor, Canada. In each location, the investigation stalls at the same boundary. Researchers are confronted with a stark evidential divide. The profound subjective certainty of those who hear the noise, contrasted against the complete failure of modern instrumentation to verify its physical existence. The file remains open, leaving a quiet, unsettling question. How can a sound exist that some people hear? Instruments cannot detect, and no known source produces. On August 15, 1977, the Big ER radio telescope recorded a narrow-band radio signal from the direction of Sagittarius. For 72 seconds, a transmission spiked near 1,420 megahertz, the neutral hydrogen line. On the computer printout, astronomer Jerry Ehman spotted the alphanumeric string 6EQUB5, representing a burst 30 times stronger than the cosmic background. Ehman circled the characters in red ink and wrote "Wow" in the margin. Decades of subsequent searches have never detected the signal again. With only a single, non-repeatable printout, researchers are left with hypotheses that point in multiple directions at once, from local interference to an artificial transmitter. The file remains open, leaving a quiet question. What was the "wow" signal, and why did it happen only once? Like the other 11 files, it remains suspended in the space between evidence and explanation, where proof ends and questions begin. History is not a record of what happened. It is a record of what we can prove. Subscribe to the channel for more evidence-driven historical investigations. Ultimately, we are left in the space where proof ends and questions begin. These anomalies remind us of a sobering truth. History is not a record of what happened. It is a record of what we can prove. When the facts point everywhere at once, we must accept the limits of our own certainty. Subscribe for more investigations into the historical record.